And what's fascinating is that even though they are fundamentally relying on similar transformer-based architectures, their business integrations, their data pipelines, and even the personalities of their models are wildly divergent.
They really are.
We have to start with OpenAI. They currently hold the strongest overall ecosystem gravity. And notice I said ecosystem gravity, not the highest benchmark scores, because the leaderboard for which model scores highest on, like the MMLU or human evil coding benchmarks, changes every 6 business minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Benchmark leadership is a fleeting metric at the frontier. The real moat OpenAI has built is their developer ecosystem and their suite orchestration.
What do you mean by suite orchestration?
Well, they aren't just serving text anymore. They have integrated vision. They have advanced conversational voice systems with incredibly low latency. They have reasoning models that actually stop and think before they output, and generative video systems like Sora.
Right. They're building a holistic, horizontally integrated stack. Again, ChatGPT is just the interface, GPT is the model.
Right. They want to be the destination.
Yeah.
You go to their interface, you use their API, and you build your business inside their walled garden. It's a very Apple-esque strategy.
Totally. But when we look at the second of the big four, Google, we see a completely inverted strategy. Google is acting as the invisible integrator. They aren't really trying to make AI a separate destination that you have to navigate to.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Google already owns the destination. They own your email client, they own your word processor, your smartphone operating system, your maps, and they own the primary way you search the internet.
Which is a massive structural advantage.
Huge. Their goal is for Gemini to essentially disappear into the infrastructure you already rely on. It's a classic Google strategy. Ubiquitous, invisible infrastructure.
Let's break down the mechanics of how they are doing that, because it relies heavily on a RAG, right? Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Yes, RAG is the key there.
Like when you open a Google Doc and ask Gemini to summarize an email thread from yesterday and draft a reply based on a PDF you have in Google Drive, the model isn't just relying on its static training data.
Right. A base model only knows what it was trained on up to a certain cutoff date. It has absolutely no idea what is in your personal inbox. So Google utilizes RAG.
How does that actually work under the hood?
When you issue that prompt, the system first acts as a retrieval engine. It searches your specific private data silo, your Gmail, your Drive, extracts the relevant text from those specific documents, and injects that text directly into the context window of the prompt right alongside your original request.
So it bundles it all together.
Yep. It then hands that massive package to the Gemini model and says, read this specific context and generate an answer based only on this.
It's basically forcing the AI to take an open book test, using your life as the textbook.
That is exactly what it is doing.
And because Google controls the entire pipeline, from the storage of the documents to the search index to the generation model, they can make that process virtually instantaneous. You don't feel like you were using an AI. You just feel like your inbox suddenly got vastly more efficient. They want to be the factory-installed infrastructure.
They want it to be seamless.
Now let's pivot to the third major pillar. Anthropic and their model family, Claude. Claude has carved out a massive chunk of the developer market. It's highly regarded for complex coding, and it pioneered those massive context windows.
Right, meaning you can feed it hundreds of pages of code or text at once, and its recall is incredibly sharp.
But the most interesting differentiator for Claude isn't its context window, it's the model's temperament. And I have a fascinating question about this. Is Claude's real advantage its intelligence, or is it actually its temperament?
Temperament is such a crucial, often overlooked layer of model architecture. Think about it. When an enterprise is integrating an AI into a high-stakes commercial product, let's say a medical diagnostic assistant or a legal contract analyzer, they have zero tolerance for a model that wants to be overly creative or, eager to please.
Right. They don't want a model that hallucinates a fake legal precedent just because the mathematical probability of those words sounded confident.
Exactly.
There's a fantastic description of this dynamic that circulates among developers. People often describe the default tone of other major models as feeling like an overexcited intern trying to impress you.
Oh, that's so accurate.
Right. It wants to give you an answer so badly that it might just confidently make something up. But Claude is consistently described as feeling like a careful engineer trying not to break production. It is naturally more cautious.
It's much more likely to stop and say, I don't have sufficient information to answer this safely.
But how does Anthropic actually engineer that temperament? I mean, it's not just a polite system prompt telling it to be careful, right?
No, it goes much deeper than the prompt layer. It's baked into the alignment phase of training. All these models undergo a phase called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. That's where human raters essentially score the model's outputs to teach it how to behave.
Okay, so humans are grading it.
Right. But Anthropic pioneered a variation called constitutional AI.
Break that down mechanically. What does constitutional AI actually do to the neural pathways?
Well, instead of relying purely on thousands of, low-paid human contractors to subjectively grade the model's safety, Anthropic gives the AI a literal constitution. It's a set of explicit rules and principles based on human rights and ethical guidelines.
Wow, okay.
So during the training phase, the AI generates a response, and then a second AI evaluates that response against the Constitution. If the response violates a rule, say it's too risky, or it hallucinates facts, the evaluating AI forces the first AI to revise it.
Oh, so it's AI grading AI based on a strict rule book.
Exactly. And over millions of iterations, this creates a model whose internal weights are structurally biased toward caution, harmlessness, and transparency. You are literally doing representation engineering to suppress the model's tendency to guess blindly.
So they mathematically penalize the overexcited intern behavior during training. That makes total sense, and it explains why enterprise clients love it. Like, if an AI generates a weird poem, it's funny. If an AI hallucinates a vulnerability into a banking app's code base, it's a catastrophic liability.
It's game over for that product.
Which brings us to the ultimate wild card of the Big Four, XAI and their model, Grok. If Claude is the careful engineer meticulously checking its work, Grok is operating on the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Completely different universe.
Grok's entire value proposition is built around its real-time awareness, which it achieves through its direct native integration with the X platform.
And this requires a very different approach to data ingestion. We mentioned RAG earlier, where a model looks up static documents. Grok is attempting something much more volatile. It's processing a real-time, global fire hose of token streams.
It is reacting to breaking news, shifting cultural sentiment, and live debates literally the second they happen.
Yes, and processing that X fire hose completely changes the tone of the model.
I mean, I have to laugh at the tone sometimes. When you are training or fine-tuning a model on millions of real-time, highly opinionated, sarcastic, and combative social media posts, you do not get a polite corporate assistant.
No, you definitely do not.
You get a model that sounds incredibly informal. The most accurate description I've heard is that Grok sounds exactly like the world's smartest Reddit commenter after 2 energy drinks.
That is hilarious, but it's true. It is explicitly designed to be edgy, to use slang, and to operate with significantly fewer guardrails regarding its tone.
It's a distinct structural bet, right?
Yeah.
The centralized cloud models we just discussed, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, right, they all heavily sanitize their outputs.
Yes, they want to be universally applicable corporate tools. XAI is betting that there is a massive consumer demand for an intelligence layer that is decidedly unsanitized. They're optimizing for raw, unfiltered, real-time reaction rather than corporate safety.
So we have the ecosystem giant, the invisible integrator, the careful engineer, and the real-time reactor. That maps the centralized cloud landscape perfectly.
It really does.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This is where the map completely fractures. Because all 4 of those systems we just talked about, they share one fundamental premise. Your data leaves your device.
Yes, it has to go to their servers.
You type a prompt, it travels over the internet to a multi-billion-dollar server farm. The compute happens there, and the resulting tokens are beamed back to your screen. But what happens when you want to sever that connection? What happens when you decide you want the intelligence to live entirely inside your own machine?
This is the local AI rebellion. And I'd argue it is the most disruptive structural shift happening in the space today.
The biggest misconceptions about AI right now. People imagine the future as one giant, all-knowing superintelligence that does everything. But economically and computationally, that's a terrible design, because different tasks require completely different trade-offs. So if you're asking, summarize this email, you want speed, low latency, low cost. If you're asking reason through a complex legal contract, you want deep reasoning, large context, slower deliberate processing. Those are all different computational workloads, which is why the ecosystem is splitting into coding models, reasoning models, media generation systems, autonomous agents, that list is going to change as well. And that's why you should like, subscribe, follow the channel, join my Patreon for free. Because I'm going to cover all this stuff. As it advances, I'm going to be one of those people that has strong opinions and tells you where I think things are going based on 13, 14 years of research. So you'll have this split in the ecosystem, not because companies randomly decided to fragment the ecosystem, but because the hardware economics practically force specialization. That's another thing that's going to change, though. See, people tend to look at things linearly based on actual reality. Actual reality changes very quickly. Exponential growth technologies.